Hello everybody, I'm Kat, and today I'm going to be sharing with you books I read earlier this year. I want to say like 3 of these videos I need to film, so this is the first one. So I'm just gonna get into it. I'm gonna be sharing with you 6 books I read from about January of this year till about March, I think. Let's get into it. So the first book I'm going to talk about here is Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. I have a full review talking about this, so I'm not going to really get into much detail about it here. I gave it 4 stars. It's sadly my least favorite in the series, but this is one of my favorite series of all time. I think it's probably my favorite trilogy of all time. Yeah, it's like 880 pages worth of Julian Blackthorn, so I'm always here for it. But I did have a few more issues with this one that I didn't really have with the previous 2 books. If you want to see my full thoughts, I have a full review. I do go into some more specific spoiler-ish parts in that review, so if you have read the book and want to know like the specific things that I didn't like about it, check it out. But that's all I'm gonna say. Gave it 4 stars. I'm really excited for the Wicked Powers because I think this book set up a lot of what's gonna happen in that next series. Sadly, we gotta wait until 2021. The next book I read was Paper Girls Volume 4. This one is not my favorite installment in the series. That would still have to go to Volume 3. The character development in that volume just blew me away. But this one was a very nice installment. I enjoyed it very much. What really interested me in this one was how they included Y2K into the plot. I thought that was pretty cool. Not my favorite in the series, but I still really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. So the next book I read was actually a novella, and that was Son of the Dawn by Cassandra Clare and Sarah Reese Brennan. This is the first book in the Ghosts of the Shadow Market novella bind-up. I actually listened to the audiobook for this one, and it was a really fun novella. I loved seeing the younger versions of the Mortal Instruments characters in this one. It was really fun to see like 10-year-old Jason, Alec, and Izzy. Lily Chen was hysterical in this one. The nicknames she gave brother Zachariah were absolutely hilarious. I loved her. She stole the show for me in this novella. This novella was very entertaining. Like I said before, I listened to the audiobook. I did have an issue with the audiobook narrator because he would occasionally like speed up certain phrases and then slow it down. I couldn't always listen to it at like a sped up speed because sometimes he would say things, he would read things really quickly. I wouldn't be able to understand him, and then other times he would slow it down and I'd be like, all right, I can like speed this up. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I honestly need to read more books in this bind-up. Now that the full bind-up is out, I will probably get to that very soon. The next book I read was Sam and Elsa's Last Hurrah by David Levithan and Rachel Cohn. I did not like this book at all. This book really suffered from being inconsistent because every time I picked it up, I felt like I was picking up an entirely different book every time. The cast of characters in this book were so unlikable that I honestly just didn't care for any of them, and then I couldn't keep track of them too. Like, it wasn't until about halfway through the novel I realized one of the characters was a sock puppet. Thank you, Mother Nature, for that thunder cue. Literally, it took me halfway through to realize that, oh, they're talking about a sock puppet. Of all things. The only part I truly liked about this book was the fact that the party took place over the course of the whole book. As someone who has read books with misleading summaries by your side, cough cough, I really appreciated that. I also really liked how everything wrapped up in that last chapter. I thought that it was a decent ending for this book. I was vastly disappointed in this because a couple years ago I read Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, and I really loved that one. So going into this, I did have some expectations for it. You know, I just expected it to be cute and fun like Dash and Lily's Book of Dares. It was not that. I gave it 2 stars. I was just not a fan, and I'm very sad to say that because I was really hoping to enjoy this one. This one is an exciting one. The next book I'm going to talk about is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, unless you live under a rock, this book was the most talked about book of 2018. It was on everyone's favorite list. It was like everyone's favorite book of the year. So I bit the bullet and I read it because I needed to see what all the hype was. I was very curious to see why so many people loved this book. Now I will say I was genuinely surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I honestly wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did just because it is so overhyped. Everyone has heard of this book at this point and everyone loves it. I didn't think I would love it. Well, I didn't love it, but I really liked it. The one issue and the only thing I hated about this book was Monique. She was so annoying, and like the whole time it was her point of view. She was just bemoaning her divorce, and I honestly wanted to slap her upside the head and tell her to build a bridge and get over it. I did not like her at all. Just thinking about her like infuels me with rage. I really disliked her character. Now Evelyn was an unlikable character, but her story was so entertaining. I like couldn't put it down. I loved hearing about all of her different husbands and the stories behind each one of them. It was so fascinating to me. My favorite character in this book was Harry. I absolutely adored him. I didn't like Evelyn's true love. Oh wait, you're gonna realize that I just read my Goodreads reviews. I didn't really like Evelyn's true love because the relationship she had with this person I felt was really toxic, but you know, Evelyn still wanted it. Like she kept going back to this person and I was like, girl, it's not worth it. The weirdest part was she easily left men who treated her that way, but she kept crawling back to this one person. I just didn't understand it. Like I said before, overall I really enjoyed this book and I would highly recommend it, but at this point everyone and their mother has already done that for me, so there's no point in me recommending a book you've already read. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. And finally, the last book I'm going to talk about today is A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. I read this memoir for school and I actually surprisingly really enjoyed it. It was funny and atmospheric and it was just a very different read from the books that I normally pick up. Bryson's way of depicting the Appalachian Trail was so atmospheric. I loved reading about his descriptions of the trail and the just incredibility of the forest he was describing. It was truly surreal reading about it, and you could easily tell that he felt the same way the reader feels as he describes this beautiful forest and the beautiful trail. However, the plot did drag for me. From about the middle until the very end of the book, it felt slow, and the humor that was very prominent in that first half of the book was like completely lost. It was regained within the last 3 chapters or so, but it takes quite a chunk of the book to get it from the middle-ish part until then. The ending was also somewhat anticlimactic to me. I know it's a memoir and it's based on real events, but I still felt somewhat disappointed by it. Like, I don't know, I wanted more. Like I said, I did enjoy my time reading this memoir. If you're looking for kind of a different, fun, atmospheric type of book, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. I gave it 3 stars. You know, it was pretty middle of the road for me. It probably would have been 4 stars had the humor not been lost in the middle, but I gave it 3. It was pretty enjoyable, especially for a school book. Those are the 6 books that I wanted to share with you today that I have recently read. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books or if you plan on reading them soon, or let me know some of the books you've read recently, because, you know, I could always use some recommendations for moving around stuff on my TBR. But that is it for this video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I post videos. Well, I try to post videos on Thursdays. It hasn't quite worked out for me well within the past year, but we're working on it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!